Welcome to another episode of Izzy Video. I'm Izzy Hyman. Today I'm going to share with you the most important type of shot to master, whether you're shooting corporate video, cinema style video, or really any type of video. It is so important, I'll go on the record as saying it's probably the absolute most important shot to get good at. What am I talking about? I'm talking about a close-up. Today I'm going to cover several different types of close-ups. I'll give you some reasons you might want to use them or not use others, and I'll give you some hints along the way. Let's go ahead and get started. One thing I want to point out up front is that before I get into the different types of close-ups, I want to emphasize that different people have different definitions for different angles. So what one person might call a medium close-up, another person might call a regular close-up, so it can get kind of confusing. So when you're working with people on set, for example, it's a good idea to get everybody on the same page. Get an idea of, okay, what are we going to call a medium close-up, what are we going to call a close-up, and so on. This first frame is called a medium close-up, and you can recognize a medium close-up because the bottom of the frame is between my shoulders and my waist, somewhere in the middle here, and then also above my head there's a little bit of headroom there. So that's a medium close-up. And now the nice thing about a medium close-up is that you're not so close that the audience feels uncomfortable, but you are close enough to be able to see some emotion on my face, and you can also see hand gestures. And of course, hand gesture is an important part of communication. So if you want to be able to show that, a medium close-up is a good choice. Incidentally, medium close-up is sometimes abbreviated as MCU, so that's something you can watch for. This frame is called a close-up, just a regular old close-up, and you can recognize it because the bottom of the frame is a little bit higher on my chest. Meanwhile, there's still some headroom above my head. Now keep in mind that we're in closer now. You're in closer as an audience member, so you can see more of the emotion on my face. But what you also gain is the ability as a shooter to put lights in closer. I could have a light stand right outside the frame here, and as an audience member, you wouldn't know. And so you can be more precise with the lighting. So it helps draw more attention to me, but it's not so close that as an audience member, you're feeling uncomfortable. This is a very common shot, probably the most common shot, and sometimes you'll see it abbreviated as CU for close-up. This frame is called a head and shoulders close-up, and it's probably pretty clear why. You can see I have my head and my shoulders in the frame. So the bottom of the frame is just below the tops of the shoulders, and there's just a tiny bit of headroom above my head. So this is called a head and shoulders close-up. This frame is called a head close-up. Sometimes it's called a big head close-up, and the way that you can recognize it is because the bottom of the frame is just below my chin, but my shoulders are no longer in the frame. Also, you'll notice that the top of the frame cuts off a piece of my head, and if you have somebody that has hair, it would cut off part of their hair, so you start to lose that from the frame. Now, this type of shot can be really good for showing a lot of emotion on somebody's face, but you don't want to use it too much, because imagine if this entire video were shot at this close angle, it'd be very, very strange. So this is a head close-up. This frame is called a choker close-up, and you can recognize it because the bottom of the frame is just below my lips, and the top of the frame is just above my eyes. Now, the advantage of this, of course, is you're in extremely close, like you're standing right in front of my face. The downside is, obviously, this close, you can get the audience quite uncomfortable. Also, the smallest little movement of my head can make a big impact in the framing. You can see I'm just barely moving my head here, but it makes a big impact in the framing. So you have to basically instruct your subject to hold their head as completely still as they can. This is called a choker close-up. This is called an extreme close-up. Obviously, it's not something you want to use all the time, but when you need to use it, it's very effective. An extreme close-up can come in very handy when you need to show something that's small and detailed, and to demonstrate this, I'm going to use my hexacopter here. Let's say I'm telling you about my hexacopter, and I mentioned that I really like this speed controller, this electronic speed controller right here. Well, that's kind of weird because here I have this big thing and I point to something small here, and at this wide angle, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. You can't really see any details. What if I do the same thing, except now I add an extreme close-up? Let's take a look. I really like this hexacopter, and one of the things you'll notice is that I used a little zip tie here to mount my electronic speed controllers on one of the arms. An extreme close-up can add a lot of visual interest to your video, so it makes sense to use it when it's appropriate. Hopefully you found all the information in this video helpful. That's it for now. I'll see you next time on Izzy Video.